I never imagined locking a stranger in my office would reveal a millionaire doctor. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The day I stumbled into chaos, wide-eyed and trembling. I sat in my cluttered office, piles of papers like mountains around me. The air was thick with anxiety. I needed a break. Then he barged in. A tall, rugged figure with striking blue eyes that pierced through my facade. His suit was tailored, too expensive for my modest practice, yet he looked utterly unbothered. I could feel my heart racing. Who was this man? The way he stormed in, my instincts screamed danger. "Excuse me," he snapped. His voice was like thunder. "I need help. Now." There was an urgency in his tone that both scared and intrigued me. I hesitated, my palms were sweaty. I stuttered. Before I could finish, he glanced around as if searching for escape. For a split second, I saw a flicker of desperation in his eyes. Without thinking, I locked the door. It felt like a bad decision. The click echoed ominously. The perfect storm had begun. The air crackled with tension, his breathing was quick, uneven. Was he running from something? Or someone? "I have to know what's happening," I said. I was drawn in despite the alarm bells ringing in my head. "Tell me, please." My heart thudded in my chest, every second stretched into eternity. He stepped closer, the heat radiating off him. The world outside faded as we stood there, two strangers caught in an absurd moment. His gaze intensified. "I've lost everything," he whispered. "But I can't let them take me too." The fear in his voice unknotted something inside me. A part of me wanted to reach out, to comfort him. The other part screamed to run. The thought churned in my stomach. As he turned slightly, I caught a glimpse of something glistening in his shirt pocket, a flash of silver. My breath hitched. A medallion? A key? It twinkled like it held a secret. "Who are you?" I asked, the words barely escaping my lips. My instincts screamed for answers, for clarity in the storm of confusion. But he opened his mouth, and just as he was about to speak, the ground seemed to shatter beneath us. A loud bang reverberated through the building. My entire body froze. What was happening outside? I glanced at him, and the expression on his face was one of pure panic. "We need to leave. Now!" he shouted, voice laced with urgency. I felt the tremor in his hands as he grabbed my arm. His grip was both firm and shaking, a mixture of strength and vulnerability. The sound of footsteps approached, heavy and relentless. My mind raced. I couldn't let him go alone. But who was I up against? The thrill of fear mingled with the adrenaline rushing through me. "Where do we go?" I asked, my voice quivering. He hesitated, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. "Trust me." Those two words felt like a dare. My heart pounded, but I nodded. Without another moment of hesitation, we prepared to plunge into the unknown, locked in this desperate race against time. But as I turned the key to unlock the door, I realized I was about to step into a world I knew nothing about. Who was this man? What had I gotten myself into? The questions spiraled as the footsteps grew louder, pounding toward us. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference, let's connect. As the heavy footsteps reverberated closer, my heart raced uncontrollably. I could feel the tension building in the small office, a pressure cooker ready to explode at any moment. The man beside me, this millionaire doctor whose name I still didn't know, was now my only tether to reality in a maelstrom of confusion. I glanced at him, searching for answers, but his face was a mask of determination intertwined with fear. The door creaked slightly as I turned the key, and with each click, the apprehension grew. I hesitated for just a moment, the weight of choice hanging heavy in the air. Did I really want to step out into whatever danger loomed on the other side? "Are you ready?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper, but the urgency cut through my hesitation. I nodded, resolute but terrified. Together, we would face whatever awaited us outside. I turned the knob and flung the door open, revealing a hallway dimly lit by flickering fluorescent lights. The footsteps stopped abruptly, and an eerie silence engulfed us. It was as if the world had paused, holding its breath in anticipation. I peered down the corridor, every instinct shouting to retreat. Instead, the doctor took a step forward, and I was compelled to follow, driven by a mix of trust and curiosity. Just as we took our first cautious steps, a shadow flickered at the end of the hall. I froze momentarily, seizing the doctor's arm instinctively. He turned, looking into the darkness with a furrowed brow. "This way," he urged, grabbing my hand and pulling me toward the nearest stairwell. As we hurried down, I caught fragments of whispers and shouts. Each word wrapped around me like a heavy blanket of dread. My heart sank as realization dawned. Whatever he was running from wasn't just his own nightmare. There were others involved, and they would not stop until they found him. "Who are they?" I gasped, breathless from both the exertion and the fear tightening around my throat. "I can't explain now," he murmured between hurried breaths, "but they will stop at nothing to find me. I need you to stay close." With every step down, our resolve solidified, even as my pulse raced. Each creak of the stairs underneath us echoed like a countdown, and I could feel the walls closing in. I had exchanged my mundane anxieties for an avalanche of uncertainty, yet an unseen tether anchored me to him. Just as we reached the ground floor, a commotion erupted above us, accompanied by the unmistakable sound of shouts and shattering glass. Our eyes met, and in that fleeting moment, something unspoken passed between us, an understanding that we were in this together. Outside, the chaos of the city pulsed around us, a stark contrast to the tense stillness in the stairwell. As we burst through the doors, fresh air enveloped us raw, and somehow intoxicating. Yet the lingering threat hung thick. "Over here," he pointed to a sleek black car idling at the curb, the driver's side door ajar. Without a second thought, we raced toward it, dread rising like bile in my throat. "Get in," he insisted, shoving me into the passenger seat before following suit. The driver, a stoic man with dark sunglasses, wasted no time in tearing away from the building. Adrenaline pumped through my veins, every jolt from the car matching the rhythm of my beleaguered heart. That I turned to him, ready to demand answers. My mouth opened, but the words got swallowed in the chaos outside the window. People rushed by obliviously, cars honked, and yet it all felt like a world away. The doctor's gaze was fixed ahead, tension radiating from him as he clenched his hands into fists. "Please," I insisted, my voice trembling, "what did you mean when you said you lost everything?" But he didn't respond immediately. The silence stretched like an eternity. My heart sank as I considered the possibility that he had no answers, that his desperation was as empty as my own. Just when despair threatened to overtake me, he finally turned his head toward me, the weight of all our unspoken fears in his eyes. "That I can't let them take me, not again. I've lost my family, my career, everything I worked for. If they find me," his voice faltered, and pain flickered across his face, a haunting echo of loss that resonated deep within me. Before I could form a reply, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket, pulling me from the depths of his confession. It was a text from my best friend, the one person who always knew when something was wrong. My heart raced, and as I glanced at the screen, I saw just one line: "Where are you? They're looking for you." My blood turned to ice. I looked up, panic flooding my senses. "They're looking for me too," I breathed, the implication settling heavily in the air like a dark cloud. The doctor's eyes widened, realization dawning upon him. "We have to find a place to hide," he said, and there was no mistaking the urgency. But before I could respond, a black vehicle swerved sharply into the lane behind us, the driver's intent clear. "Hold on!" the driver shouted, weaving through the frantic streets, but it was already too late. With a deafening crunch, metal met metal, and the world around us erupted into chaos once more. In that moment, as the car spun out of control, everything I had come to know shattered into fragments, dragging us both into a storm that promised to unveil truths we were not prepared for. The world righted itself with a jarring thud as the airbags deployed, enveloping me in a cocoon of white, suffocating chaos. For a moment, I couldn't decipher where I ended and the car began, my senses drowned out by the sharp scent of burnt fabric and smoke. With a groan, I tried to gather my disoriented thoughts, instinctively reaching for the doctor beside me. "Are you okay?" I gasped, my voice quaking as I brushed the airbag aside, desperate to find him. His face was pale, but he nodded, the sharp focus returning to his eyes even through the haze. Without another word, he scrambled for the door and pulled it open. The driver was already out, shouting for help as he staggered to regain his footing. Panic surged anew in my chest, and I clambered after the doctor, my heart racing with dread as we emerged from the wreckage. The street was a symphony of screeching tires and panicked voices. My gaze darted around, searching for any sign of the pursuing vehicle, but the chaos had unraveled into a scene straight from a nightmare. Pedestrians scrambled, their faces masks of shock, while fragments of our lives sat strewn across the asphalt. "Stay close," he warned, his voice firm as he grasped my wrist, guiding me down the sidewalk with urgency. I stumbled, disoriented, barely able to keep up with the frantic pace. My mind buzzed with thoughts of my best friend's text. Were they really looking for me? What did I even mean to them now? Caught in this whirlwind of danger, we turned into a narrow alley, and for a moment, the din of the city receded, replaced by the echo of our hurried footsteps against the cobblestones. "What's the plan?" I asked through labored breaths, desperation clawing at my throat as I looked into his eyes, seeking reassurance. "The subway," he replied, scanning the shadows of the alley. "It's our best chance to blend in." Just as he spoke, an engine revved menacingly behind us. My heart lurched at the sound, and I instinctively pressed closer to him that he pulled me behind a dumpster, the sharp smell of refuse filling my nostrils as I clung to him in the dark. We waited, silent breaths shared, tension building between us like myriads of unsaid things just waiting to break free. I could feel the heat of his body against mine, a comfort amidst chaos. "Do you really think they'll find us?" I dared to whisper, fighting against the wave of fear that threatened to pull me under. His expression hardened, yet there was a flicker of something else, vulnerability. "Perhaps that I won't let them," he vowed, the intensity in his voice igniting a strange warmth within my chest. And for the first time, I saw more than just the doctor in distress. I saw a man grappling with fears that mirrored my own, a man who wanted to protect what little was left in his world. The engine grew fainter, and after what felt like an eternity, he peeked out from our hiding place. "We need to move," he urged. "Now." As we sprinted towards the subway entrance, my mind raced with 100 concerns, but one question burned above all: what was waiting for us on the other side? We descended the steps, anxiety wrapping around my heart like a vice. The platform was bustling with commuters, oblivious to the turmoil that surrounded us. My eyes scanned the crowd, searching for signs of danger. As the train rolled in, we wedged ourselves into the chaotic sea of bodies. I pressed myself to the wall, desperation clawing at me as the doors sealed shut, trapping us within the steel confines of uncertainty. "Can you tell me what you meant by losing everything?" I finally whispered, willing him to confide in me, yet fearing the answer. His face tightened, and the shadows of the subway flickered with unspoken truths. "They're not just after me. It's personal." He hesitated, the weight of his words thickening the air between us. "They've taken everything I love, and I can't let that happen to you too." I felt an ache in my chest as his gaze turned distant, haunted by memories I couldn't share. "What does that mean? Who are they?" I pressed, my voice barely rising above the clattering of the train. Before he could respond, the fluorescent lights overhead flickered, plunging us momentarily into darkness. A chill shot down my spine as the lights blinked back on, revealing an unfamiliar face staring directly at us from across the compartment. The man from the alley, the one from the speeding car. Recognition washed over me like a cold wave, and I instinctively moved closer to the doctor, my heart hammering against my ribcage. My worst fears crystallized into a terrifying reality. They weren't just looking for the doctor, they were looking for both of us, and it was only a matter of time before they caught up. In that moment, as the train lurched forward, I realized no escape was guaranteed. Just then, the man didn't move but stood watching, his eyes hard and piercing, filled with intent. A single thought flooded my consciousness: what was it they truly wanted from us, and could we survive the revelations that awaited on the path ahead? The train rattled through the darkness of the tunnel, every jolt amplifying the dread coiling in my stomach. I felt his fingers tighten around my hand as we both turned toward the stranger who had infiltrated our fragile sanctuary. My world had been tipped upside down in a matter of hours, and now here we were, suspended between adrenaline and waiting for the inevitable. What do we do? I whispered urgently, my breath hitching as I dared to glance at the man again. He was still watching us, his expression unreadable. Stay calm, the doctor instructed, his voice a steady anchor amidst the whirlpool of chaos. Well, get off at the next stop. Don't draw attention. I wanted to nod, to trust him, but the weight of uncertainty felt suffocating. What could someone like Masamion, who hadn't even faced the most menial of confrontations, do against an apparent predator? When the train lurched to a stop, the doors slid open, and I felt the immediate rush of commuters. As they flowed in and out like a stream, I felt the doctor's fingers brush against mine, and my heart raced not just from fear, but from something that sparked beneath the surface of panic. With a gentle urge, he pulled me along, leading us into the thrumming heart of the subway station. As we exited onto the platform, time seemed to stretch, and fear morphed into a palpable force. My gaze fell back to the man. The intensity of his glare hadn't wavered. He had followed us. How was it possible? And what was his purpose? Is there a way out? I asked, my voice shaky. Somewhere we can hide? There's a cafe nearby, he replied, gesturing toward an archway. It's always bustling, and we may blend in for a moment. We just need to look like everyone else. I felt the pull of urgency churning in the pit of my stomach, battling against the notion that standing still might be a safer option. We weaved through scattered groups of people, some lost in conversation, others glued to their phones. Each face blended into the next, but the fear of being discovered made every fleeting gaze feel like scrutiny. When we finally burst through the threshold of the cafe, the smell of coffee was a welcome distraction. My heart raced, but I tried to swallow the dread while the doctor scanned the room. Let's find a booth in the corner, he suggested softly. As we navigated the busy tables, I glanced back over my shoulder, half expecting to find the stranger lurking behind us, but it appeared he had dissipated into the crowd. Relief washed over me momentarily as we settled into the booth, but the weight still hung heavy between us. Didn't he see that the real danger lurked within his past, the cause of the relentless pursuit? What did you mean earlier? I found the courage to ask, my voice a mere whisper. About them taking everything you love? He hesitated, his eyes clouding with memory. It's complicated, he began, his brow knitting together. I was once in a position to change lives, to save those who were lost, but I failed. They took my partner, my purpose, because of who I was, the choices I made. The people I healed often came with consequences that came back for me, and now they're after anyone who stands by me. Including you. My heart twisted, the weight of his sorrow settling into my bones. But I don't even know you, I stammered, feeling the connection born from shared panic intensifying in an odd way. Why would they care about me? Because, he said, his voice trembling, you're the only person I can protect. I can't lose you too. The vulnerability in his eyes ignited a flicker of hope. They say in the darkest moments is where we find our strength, yet here I was, sensing that our connection was somehow a fragile path away from the impending storm. Then, to my astonishment, he reached across the table and squeezed my hand tightly, his grip both pleading and reassuring. I felt warmth shoot up my arm, a sensation I hadn't expected in this calamitous mess. But just as quickly, uncertainty swept over me. Could I be the vessel for someone else's redemption while battling my fear of losing my own purpose? Before I could vocalize my thoughts, the bell above the entrance jingled, and a shiver raced down my spine. I turned instinctively, and just as the coffee machine hissed, the stranger stepped into the café, silhouetted against the bustle of patrons. A chilling predatory calm surrounded him as his gaze scanned the tables. My heart felt like it would burst, and I instinctively pulled my hand from the doctor's grasp, instinctively slipping down in my seat as terror consumed me. "We need to go," he whispered sharply. Our connection from a moment ago slipped away, and I could see determination take root alongside anger in his eyes. "Where?" I asked, panic slicing through my words. "Anywhere but here," he insisted as he stood abruptly, glancing toward the door with urgency blazing across his features. I pushed myself up alongside him, confusion mingling with fear as I broke into a hurried stride. His strength enveloped me as we navigated through the crowd, and with every swift step, I could feel the stakes rising, the walls of our reality caving in around us. In that desperate moment, the stranger caught sight of us, his gaze narrowing like a hawk locking onto its prey. My heart sank as I realized we were running towards something far beyond our control, and the refuge we sought may just lead us closer to an undeniable truth. As we burst into the cool air outside, I had one nagging thought: if he could be so certain about my safety, what was waiting in the shadows of his past that was about to unveil itself, and could we withstand the power of that revelation? The moment we hit the street, the chaos outside seemed simpler than the turmoil churning in my mind. My breaths came in quick bursts as we pushed past bewildered pedestrians. The high-rise buildings towered like sentinels above us, hiding secrets within their steel and glass. My heart echoed in my ears, a relentless reminder of the danger looming behind us, and the man chasing us was only part of the tempest. "Are you hurt?" the doctor asked abruptly, concern knitting his brow as he turned momentarily, scanning my face amidst the crowd. The worry etched into his features shocked me. Should he really care this much? I felt I had become a liability, not someone worth fighting for. No, I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "Just scared." He took a deep breath, and for a fleeting moment, our eyes locked. In that space, I saw vulnerability in him, a reflection of my own fear, intermingled with the hopes of what we might yet protect. But before I could muster the strength to voice my thoughts, the ones bouncing wildly in my head, shifted his gaze ahead, eyes narrowing as he spotted a narrow alley. "There," he said, nodding toward the back street, seemingly our only option. I hesitated, glancing back at the street. The stranger had vanished, perhaps he had given up. But I could feel a shadow creeping in my chest, a sense that it was far too soon to feel safe. As we darted into the alleyway, I felt like a thief scrambling to evade a persistent pursuer. The walls of the buildings loomed over us, their close proximity echoing the feeling of entrapment closing in. We finally paused at the end of the alley, panting heavily. "Is it gone?" I gasped. "I think so," he said, scanning the street, his expression fierce as he took my arm gently. "But we need to keep moving. There's a safe house nearby where I can." "Safe house?" I interrupted, my heart hammering. "What do you mean, a safe house? Is this some sort of spy game for you? Or is this all a setup?" "Because I'm not sure I can." "Listen," he interrupted, his grip tightening, but there was a calm reassurance in his voice. "I know how this sounds, but it's real. This danger is real, and if we don't find refuge soon, we risk everything." I wanted to shout, to confront him about the secrecy, to demand why I was tied up in this chaotic mess, but the weight of his words settled in like a cool breeze across my skin. I pulled my gaze away from him, focusing instead on the slick, cobbled ground mirroring my scurrying mind. How had I ended up here? One moment in my quiet office, the next running through alleys with an enigmatic doctor. What was it about him that kept me tethered despite the madness swirling around us? Before I could collect my thoughts, he stepped closer, his expression softening. Please. I can't lose you too. If they come for us, you need to trust that I will do everything I can to protect you. Trust. It was nebulous at best. Yet, in that moment, I felt a flicker of something beyond the shadow-san inkling that maybe, just maybe, I could allow myself a moment of faith in the unknown, even despite it all. Okay, I murmured, though uncertainty clung to each word. Lead the way. As we emerged from the alley and back onto the main road, the whirl of the city enveloped us again. He guided me farther into the thrumming heart of it all, each step leading me to a place I had never envisioned I would be, away from my desk, away from the mundane. But then, something drew me back. The specter of the stranger loomed behind my thoughts. Tell me about the safe house, I whispered as we ducked into a surprisingly tranquil courtyard. A fountain played softly at its center, providing a momentary reprieve from the chaos outside, even if just for our ears. He hesitated, the flicker of unease darkening his gaze once more. It's hidden. A place I've used before, but he paused, swallowing hard. I might not be able to get you there without drawing more attention than necessary. I just need to understand what we're facing, I pressed, desperation edging my voice. Please don't keep anything from me. He sighed heavily, the weight of his past obviously taking its toll. They were once my allies, now they're after me. I didn't know they could go this far, but I've ruined lives. This was never supposed to happen. His eyes darkened further, reflecting a storm of pain. What do you mean, ruined lives? I asked, trepidation crawling through my veins. I gave them my trust, he admitted, shame creeping into his voice. And now they want my blood. A chill shot through me, the stakes of my own involvement suddenly escalating, a tidal wave of dread and uncertainty crashing against the fragile buoy of hope inside me. Was I really prepared to swim alongside him, knowing the depths of his past? Just then, the sound of footsteps echoed around the corner, breaking the fragile moment. My pulse quickened again, fear spiraling, as I glanced at him. It was time to run once more, but would his darkness be the ruin of me as well? As the figures began to emerge from the shadows, all I could feel was the dread coiling back into my stomach like a cold serpent, poised to strike. I had entered a world I never asked for, but was I strong enough to emerge unscathed? The panic surged anew as the silhouettes approached, their forms gradually solidifying into the sharp edges of reality. I glimpsed the distinctive outlines of suits, their stiff backs and sharp shoulders giving way to an authority that both terrified and intrigued me. It was chaos thrumming at the edge of my consciousness, and I couldn't ignore it. Another layer of danger in our already perilous situation. Come on, he urged, grasping my hand tightly and pulling me backwards toward the edge of the courtyard. We have to find a way out. My heart raced as we tiptoed along the perimeter, the water from the fountain bubbling and gurgling, a deceptive facade of calm amidst our unraveling world. I could catch the glint of light reflecting off polished shoes, the sharp clicks of their heels echoing ominously as they deliberated on their next move. I can't, I breathed, my voice barely escaping my lips. What if they see us? They won't if we stay behind the fountain, he whispered urgently. I could see the determination in his eyes, that fierce blend of defiance and desperation that drew me and seemed to tether me to him even in the throes of fear. As we crouched behind the fountain, its gentle splashing a stark contrast to our pounding hearts, I stole a glance at the approaching men. They were scanning the area, their expressions ruthless as they exchanged quiet, calculating murmurs. Each second felt elongated under their scrutiny, and I wanted to scream out my panic, to puncture the tension that seemed to hang in the air like a thick fog. Why would they be looking for you? I whispered, wanting to know just how far back this threat spanned, stretching roots deep beneath our feet, entwining us into a web of peril. I made mistakes, he admitted, his voice steady despite the quaking fear in his eyes. Trusting the wrong people, believing their intentions were pure when, in reality, it was all a facade. That sounds like something out of a movie, I replied bitterly, a tinge of disbelief lacing my tone. My whole world had been a careful choreography, and now I found myself entangled in a scene written by forces far beyond my control. I wish it were, he said with an unexpected softness, a vulnerability breaking through the steely armor he wore. But the truth is, no one ever told me how easily things could spiral out of control. And now, they're coming for everything I had built. Suddenly, my breath hitched as a bolt of realization struck me. He wasn't just running from a faceless enemy, he was running from the consequences of choices that now ensnared us both. You mean I'm in danger because of your past? His eyes locked onto mine, the gravity of that shared truth hanging heavily between us. Yes. But I won't let them hurt you. I can't afford to lose anyone else. In that fleeting moment of clarity, I felt a swell of warmth alongside the fear, something that began to blur the lines of our chaotic reality. I glanced down at our hands, an unexpected connection blossoming under the shared weight of our secrets and fears. But that heartening feeling was short-lived, severed as a loud voice burst forth, barking orders, "Search every corner of this area." One of the men commanded, eyes narrowing, scanning every centimeter with an intensity that bordered on desperate. I felt the warmth of his hand slip from mine as he tensed, only for a second, behaving as if we could somehow become invisible. "That's our cue," he muttered, stepping cautiously backward, further into the shadows. "We need to circle around. There's an entrance back there. If we're quick, we might be able to slip away." As we turned to move, a thought pierced through my fear, a glimmer of betrayal. What if you're not telling me everything? What if this is just a game to you, a way to escape while I'm left to face the consequences? He stopped suddenly, turning to me with a fierce urgency in his gaze. "I would never put your life at risk for my sake. Believe me, there's no greater enemy to me than my own past." The intensity of his words settled like heavy stones in my stomach, and yet, even as mistrust bubbled beneath the surface, a part of me yearned to believe him. But before I could respond, he turned sharply, desperately tugging at my sleeve. "This way." We sprinted deeper into the recesses of the courtyard, the voices fading slightly as the distance grew, but my heart wouldn't slow, each beat drumming in time with our hurried escape. My mind whirled with fragmented thoughts, replaying his confession of past mistakes, gnawing at me like an insatiable beast. As we rounded the corner of the courtyard, the walls seemed to rise and close in once more, obscuring us from the chaotic tapestry of the city. Just as we rounded an unseen bend, a rustle came from behind, a scuffle that shattered all illusions of safety. "Stop." A voice boomed, clear and firm, skidding to a halt. Dread pooled in my gut as I turned to see a figure stepping into view, silhouetted against the urban skyline. Here was another player in this twisted game, a new specter unsheathing secrets that could very well change everything. I felt the doctor's grip tighten around me, confusion etched on his face like a crumbled map, one that had yet to reveal its ultimate destination. And as the new figure moved closer, I realized that my heart had never been more torn. For in that moment, deep within the anxious gasp of my breath, I understood that the secrets of his past might not only bind us together but could very well unravel everything I thought I knew. The figure stepped into the light, revealing a visage that twisted the knife of déjà vu deep into my heart. There, framed by the flickering glow of a street lamp, stood a woman whose icy gaze seemed to pierce right through me. Her silhouette was striking, a cascade of dark hair and a tailored coat that screamed authority. I could feel the tension in the air thicken, a silent battle of wills that hung heavily between us. "Oh, look who we have here," she said, her voice smooth and venomous. "The little lost lamb finds herself in quite the wolf's den, doesn't she?" Her words dripped with sarcasm, an unsettling smile curving her lips as if she relished our predicament. I glanced at him, though his expression remained unreadable. There was a twist in his jaw, the tension radiating off him like a heat wave. "Get back," he warned, an imperative in his tone that sent shivers racing down my spine. We were outnumbered, and the pit of uncertainty in my stomach widened as the weight of her presence surged forward. "What a pity, really," she continued, ignoring him entirely. "I'd hoped we could part ways without involving anyone else." Her eyes flicked to me, dissecting and appraising as if I were nothing more than a pawn in this twisted chess game. "But it seems the stakes have risen. How do you know her?" I asked, my voice trembling. The sharp tang of fear and confusion hung in the air. The woman's smirk deepened, savoring my distress. "Oh, I don't just know her," she purred, casting a sideways glance at him. "I know everything about both of you. Your little secrets are deliciously complicated, you see." She stepped forward, and I felt an urge to retreat. Her presence was like a storm cloud, threatening to unleash chaos. "What do you want?" he demanded, reclaiming his ground. I could feel his resolve hardening, a fierce protective instinct swirling within him, but the uncertainty simmered just beneath the surface. Even now, in the face of such intimidation, did he trust her less than he did me? "Oh, it's delightful how you still think you're in control." Her tone was mocking, and she laughed softly, a sound that made my skin crawl. "You've always been the reckless one, haven't you? Following the wrong lead without considering the cost." "Enough," he snapped, but the sharpness of his voice was drowned in the tremor of my heart. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was witnessing the unraveling of something monumental, like watching a building collapse in slow motion. "Let's cut to the chase," she said, a predatory gleam in her eyes. "I'll make you a deal. You return what's mine, and I'll let the girl walk away unscathed." She gestured toward me, and for a moment, an unsettling wave of relief washed over me. But it was accompanied by an unyielding dread that coiled tighter around my throat. "What do you mean?" he asked, caught between my panic and the sinister undercurrent of her offer. "Did you really think you could run away from your past without consequences?" Her laughter cut through the air like glass. "You took something that didn't belong to you, and now it's time to pay the price." My heart raced as a sickening realization gnawed at me. If his past was darker than I could fathom? What if I was merely collateral damage in a game of greed and revenge that I couldn't possibly comprehend? "There's nothing for you here," he shot back, but there was a crack in his armor, a glimmer of vulnerability that betrayed him. The walls felt like they were closing in, a cage of our collective secrets threatening to consume us. "Ah, but you see, darling," she said, cornering him with her presence. "There's still so much left to unravel. A storm brews, and you either face it or get swept away." Her gaze suddenly flicked to me, and the intensity of her stare sent chills down my spine. "You want to know why he's in danger? Because you're standing in the line of fire, and I can make sure it's a fire you'll never forget." That I could feel the room spin as the weight of her words bore down on me. My breaths grew shallow as I registered the implication of her threat. Did this woman hold the power to destroy everything I had tried to build in the brief moments of our connection? Panic surged within me as the ground shifted underfoot, an impending revelation sinking its teeth into my core. "What did you take from him?" The question hung in the air, poised on the precipice of a truth I was terrified to uncover. The woman simply smiled, a cruel twist of satisfaction in her expression. "Oh, sweet girl, the real question is what will you do when you find out?" Before I could respond, he stepped forward, shielding me instinctively, the fierce protector unmasked in an instant. "Don't you dare lay a finger on her," he warned, an unfamiliar edge to his voice. The woman let out a soft laugh, a sound dripping with malice. "This isn't over. I'll find what I want, and soon enough, you'll both come to understand just how far the ripple of your choices can travel." With that, she stepped back into the shadows, disappearing as suddenly as she had appeared, leaving behind an echo of threats and unspoken truths. Silence engulfed us. I felt as if all the air had been sucked out of the world, replaced with the weight of dread that hung like a fog. I turned to him, searching for answers, for assurance that everything could somehow be okay. But as our eyes locked, I realized that my heart clung to the hope that it could be all right, even while the edges of our precarious reality frayed further apart. Just as I opened my mouth to speak, a muffled voice came from the distance, shattering the stillness. "That we need to move," he urged, his voice a dozen shades darker. As we turned away from the remnants of our confrontation, I felt the chasm between us widen, ripe with unspoken fears and darkness that threatened to unravel everything. And as we plunged deeper into the unknown, I couldn't shake the feeling that with every step we took, we were awakening forces that could either forge our bond or tear it apart entirely. The night unfolded around us, a suffocating veil that made the alleys feel like labyrinths stitched together by shadows. Each footfall echoed against the cobblestones, a sound that only amplified the heavy silence hanging over us. I could feel the pulse of fear in my veins and the disorienting scent of unpredictability that clung to the air. It was laced with the bitterness of confusion, and yet, there lingered a sliver of an unspoken connection between Yuson that both scared and galvanized me at the same time. Where do we go from here? I asked, my voice low, struggling against the rising panic that threatened to drown me. I tried to catch his gaze, but he kept his eyes fixed on the path that lay ahead, a determined focus that left no room for distraction. He hesitated. We need to get out of the open, he replied, urgency threading through his tone. Find somewhere we can figure this out. I nodded, though my heart pounded against my chest, a fierce rhythm underscoring his words. I wondered if he could feel my trepidation, if he could sense the way my emotions churned within me, threatening to spill over like an overflowing glass. The tension between us was a taut thread, stretched acutely with every step we took. As we scuttled through an alley, the world disappeared into a haze of uncertainty. There was no denying that the confrontation had shifted something essential between us. I clung to the hope that we would find solace in the understanding that lay ahead, yet the gnawing dread remained. The pounding question of what awaited us still hung in the air like an unshakable ghost. We turned a corner and stumbled upon a small cafe, its neon sign flickering half-heartedly in the dimness. Come on, he urged, pulling me in just as a flash of headlights streaked past. The warm glow of interior lights cast a promising smile over the beads of darkness that chased us. Inside, the air was thick with the aroma of freshly ground coffee and pastries displayed like small treasures behind glass. It felt surreal, like stepping into a different realm, an oasis amid the chaos. We found a table tucked away in a corner, wedged between two soothing art pieces that portrayed serene landscapes. Still, I couldn't shake the tension etched across his face. Do you have any idea what she meant? I finally ventured, the silence stretching uncomfortably like an elastic band primed to snap. What did you take from her? He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair, a motion layered with frustration and anxiety. It's complicated, he said, struggling to form the words. Things I had to do to survive. Choices I made, they follow me. This woman, his voice trailed off, choked with a familiar shame I could see reflected in his eyes. My heart ached for him, a pang of empathy rising as I watched the weight of his past rest heavily on his shoulders. You don't need to bear this alone, I said softly, reaching across the table and resting my hand atop his in a gesture of solidarity, a small flicker of warmth in the gathering darkness. Whatever it is, we will face it together. For a brief moment, I worried that my own words were naive, stepping into a realm I wasn't fully prepared for. But the fire of his gaze lit something within me, an unwavering belief that we were stronger together, even in the face of an uncertain future. He glanced down at my hand, the touch igniting a spark of connection, but the specter of fear lurked behind his eyes. I'm not the only one in danger, you know, he said quietly, his gaze finally meeting mine, a storm brewing behind his expression. The weight of it all suddenly felt pressing, like someone had adjusted the rules of the game we were playing. I don't care, I replied, bolstered by something fierce. I won't let fear dictate our decisions. After everything, I'm not turning back. His breath hitched as if he hadn't expected my resolve. I saw a flicker of hope in his gaze, an appreciation for the strength I didn't even know I had within me. But before he could respond, another flash of headlights cut through the cafe windows, bright and invasive. Igniting a spark of shared panic that rocketed through the air. Stay close, he whispered urgently, slipping his hand from mine, but not before I felt the electric pull of our lingering connection. Together we stood, scanning the commotion outside. Suddenly, the world felt heavier as two figures emerged from the shadows, their presence an ominous reminder of the threats lurking just beyond the cafe's comforting facade. Is that her? I breathed, my voice trembling at the thought. My heart raced as the figures strolled casually toward the cafe, their intentions hidden within the folds of their silhouettes. He didn't respond, his jaw set tightly, but I felt the weight of his protective instincts intensify. Without uttering a word, he nudged me toward the bathroom at the back of the cafe. Go! He urged under his breath, panic threading through the urgency, but I hesitated, meeting his eyes one last time. Please, I implored, feeling the very foundation of our fragile bond teetering on the brink. We can't let fear control this. That he didn't argue, only nodded, a flicker of understanding passing between us. As I rushed toward the bathroom, the cold truth hit like a shot. We were standing on the precipice of a reality that threatened to consume us both, and now it was clearer than ever that the stakes had never been higher. In the enclosed space, I pressed my palm against the chill of the sink, taking shallow breaths as chaos erupted outside. A cacophony of raised voices, recognition dawning when I heard a familiar one above the fray. "We know you're in there. There's nowhere to hide." Heart pounding, a sense of desperation pooling inside me, I gripped the sink tighter, battling against the overwhelming tide of fear washing over me. What had I stepped into? What fate awaited us? The silence that followed their threat felt heavy, as if time itself was stalling to let my mind catch up with the gravity of our circumstances. I could no longer ignore the gnawing feeling that this was merely the beginning of something much darker, and just when my mind churned with possibilities, the sound of a scuffle broke the air, punctured by the sound of shattering glass. Then, absolute silence. My heart stopped. Whatever I thought I knew about this moment was upended, the ground shifting beneath us once again. In the cramped confines of the bathroom, dread clung to me like a second skin. I could feel the knot of anxiety clenching my stomach tighter with each passing second. The chaotic noises outside grew louder, the world beyond the door pulsating with the erratic rhythm of fear. A moment of quiet followed, and a chilling stillness settled around me like a suffocating fog. I pressed my ear to the cold, tiled wall, desperate to catch any indication of what was unfolding. A muffled exchange echoed outside, a harsh whisper followed by a thrill of panic in my veins. I clutched the sink as if it were my lifeline, heart racing, trying to shut out the chaos in my mind. What were they capable of? What were they after? Then the silence shattered. A loud crash sent a jolt through my body, and I froze. The voices turned aggressive, angry, clamoring to breach the barrier between safety and the unknown. "Where are they?" One voice barked, laden with urgency that made my hair stand on end. "They can't just disappear." My breath hitched in my throat as the panic threatened to spill over. I couldn't stay here, not buried under this weight of fear. I had to find him, to support him, wherever he was. With shaking hands, I opened the bathroom door just a crack, peeking out into the dim cafe that was slowly but surely unraveling. The scene was chaotic: overturned chairs, tables upended, and behind it all, the flicker of desperation in his eyes as he faced the two strangers with an unsettling calm that inflamed my determination. The shadows loomed large, menacing figures pacing before him, demanding, threatening. The reality of our circumstances crashed down once more, heavy and daunting. "Let her go," he warned, his voice steady yet laced with an underlying thread of fear. The sight of him standing defiantly, shoulders squared, sent a ripple of warmth through me. Part of me wanted to call out to him, to let him know I was here, but I couldn't risk drawing their attention. "Why would we do that, Rafe?" One of the figures sneered, crossing his arms in a show of dominance. "You know what we want. Hand it over, and maybe you can keep your precious girl out of this." How dare they threaten him? A surge of anger rose within me, but I pushed it down, knowing that charging in recklessly would only endanger us both. I needed a plan, even if it felt impossible. Is it worth putting her in danger? Rafe shot back, his voice fierce yet layered with an unmistakable concern. "You think I would give in that easily? You should know me better by now." The other figure leaned closer, malicious intent seeping from his words. "You've made this personal, Rafe. And personal gets messy." I felt a swell of fear tighten around my throat. This went beyond merely confronting danger, it was a twisted game, and we were both pieces on a board we didn't even fully understand. In this moment, uncertainty became a weapon, and my heart raced with the realization that their threats were not hollow. It was then that I noticed a sliver of light flickering through the commotion. An elderly waitress, who had been stumbling to the back with a tray of coffee, nearly dropping it in her panic. In her eyes, I saw a flicker of defiance, a sudden surge of bravery. She turned toward Rafe, her expression morphing from fear to resolve. "Hey!" she called out. "You can't treat people like this. What's wrong with you?" the two strangers turned to her with a mix of surprise and ire. "Mind your business, lady." One snapped, but she stood her ground. "People like you think you own the place, but you're nothing but bullies. You can't just railroad your way through life," she said, the defiance in her voice cutting through the haze. "Stay out of this," the second man warned, but the waitress didn't falter. It was as if she were channeling all her untapped courage through her words, and in that moment, she became a beacon shining through the darkness. Before I knew it, I was stepping out from my hiding. "That's right," I added, bolstered by her courage. "You don't get to threaten us here." Rafe's eyes widened momentarily with surprise, and the shadowy figures grimaced, caught off guard. The air shifted as they weighed their options, now mindful of the growing audience, other cafe customers peering through the haze of fear, unity igniting nascent hope deep in the recesses of the room. But our unity came at a cost, a price I couldn't quite comprehend yet, and the tension grew tighter. Just as the strangers began to regroup, a loud crash came from the front as the door burst open, slamming against the wall. Time stopped as we all turned toward the entrance, my breath catching in my throat as a familiar figure filled the doorway, someone I never thought I'd see again. Mila. The name, spoken with urgency and disbelief, shattered what tenuous grasp I had on certainty. My breath escaped me, left hanging in the air as I realized I stood at the precipice of choices I never wanted to face. Would this presence strengthen our resolve or sever the fragile threads knitting us all together? The moment my best friend Mila burst into the cafe, a wave of conflicting emotions roared through me: relief, confusion, and a surge of protectiveness that threatened to overwhelm my senses. Her eyes searched the room frantically, radiant with the familiarity I had felt lost without, yet now wrapped in shadows that made my heart race. I felt a rush of warmth wash over me, as if her very presence offered a glimmer of hope amidst the chaos. "Why did you come here?" I shouted, desperation clawing at my throat. "I'm not leaving you behind again," she replied, determination firm in her voice. But in that very moment, the two shadowy figures exchanged glances, concealed irritation flickering across their faces as they registered Mila's presence. "It's time for you to leave," one of the men growled in frustration, swiftly pivoting toward Rafe. "Hand it over. Now that I'm not giving you anything." Rafe's voice was low but intense, each word coated in resolve that held the weight of his aching past. "Do the right thing, Rafe," the second man warned, a sinister edge creeping into his tone. "You're only digging your grave deeper. This isn't just about you anymore." As the tension thickened, the elderly waitress, an unexpected ally, took a step forward. "You don't scare me. This isn't your territory to bully. You've got no right," she said firmly, her voice steady as she positioned herself next to Rafe, forming a united front against the encroaching shadows. I glanced between Rafe and Mila, the weight of what lay on the line growing heavier. Our world had been thrust into chaos, drawn tighter by choices that bound us all together in this grim tale. As a new sense of determination ignited, I grabbed Mila's hand, squeezing for strength. "We can't let them win," I whispered, my voice shaking but resolute. Rafe nodded, sensing our fierce unity bolstered by a strange bond forged amid adversity. "If they think they can play us like pawns, they've underestimated who we are. We can fight this." Just then, the front door swung open, and a chill swept through the cafe as another figure emerged, an unexpected ally clad in a tailored coat. It was a man I recognized, one who loomed large in Rafe's troubled past, Jason, his former partner, who had been claimed by the same choices. His entrance shifted the atmosphere, bringing a thrill of confusion and disbelief. "Rafe, stop!" Jason shouted, hands raised, eyes darting nervously, and for a fleeting moment, everything paused. The chaos held its breath, waiting for what would come next. "You don't have to do this. We can find a way to resolve this without anyone getting hurt." "Resolve?" Rafe's voice cut through the silence, laced with bitterness. "You were part of the problem, Jason. You turned your back when I needed you most. You let me down." But behind Rafe's fury lay a glimmer, a flicker of hope that Jason's return could be a bridge across the divide, a chance to break the cycle. "You don't have to carry this weight alone," Jason pleaded, stepping cautiously closer. We can make an arrangement, one that doesn't call for bloodshed. I can help, but we need to work together. Rafe hesitated, eyes narrowing as he weighed the man before him. The shadows seemed to retreat slightly, my heart pounding as a dangerous glimmer of possibility flickered into view. Could this be the moment we had hoped for, a chance to break the chains of a past that had bound him for too long? Is that what you really want, Jason? Rafe finally asked, voice steady but contemplative. Or are you just afraid of what they will do if I resist? Jason faltered, hesitating before responding. I need you to trust me. This isn't just about survival. It's about redemption. And in that instant, I realized what was unfolding, the confluence of paths that had brought us all to this moment. Before we could process the implications, the leading figure of the two pursuers stepped forward, simmering with irritation. Enough of this. You'll all regret this, he spat, voice thick with menace. We've been patient, but our time is running out, and I'll make sure you learn firsthand why crossing me is a fatal mistake. Little by little, a defiance sparked in my chest, the notion that fear would no longer dictate my fate. You think you can intimidate us? I called out, anger fueling my resolve as I stepped slightly closer to Rafe and Mila. We aren't your pawns, we aren't backing down. Do you want a showcase? The second figure taunted, stepping closer, menacing shadow eclipsing the warm cafe lights. You don't get to play hero, your life is nothing compared to what we're capable of. Before I could process what I was doing, I felt the pressure of Rafe's arm around me, grounding my resolve. We're not leaving here empty-handed, he spoke with conviction, mixed with that palpable fear that hummed in the air. I'll protect what's mine. The tension coiled tighter, the stakes unfurling as words hung in the air like a potent potion, uncertain, volatile, but alive with potential. Friends turned allies, darkened pasts illuminated, and the chance to rewrite our fates lingered just beyond our grasp. In that fraught moment, Jason moved closer, positioning himself as a dividing line between Rafe and the sinister figures lingering in the shadows. Let's find a way to make this right. Together, we can dismantle this game they're controlling. The sudden rush of understanding was like a spark igniting all possibilities. There'd never been a time for passivity. Perhaps we could reclaim our narratives if we stood united against the threats chasing us. Together, I echoed, bolstered by that same fierce energy, our voices intertwining into a chorus that shattered the veil of fear. We will rise from this, no matter what it takes. With fierce conviction, we edged forward as a united force, prepared to take on the consequences of our entangled destinies. As we locked eyes with those who threatened us, I felt an unshakable certainty. I believed in the power of our alliance, our shared histories woven with a tapestry of bravery and undeniable strength. Just as the confrontation reached its zenith, the cafe was enveloped in a shroud of impending chaos, a finale awaiting its performance. But as the walls of our battered reality shifted and morphed, we stood ready, hands joined and hearts entwined, preparing to break free. And in that moment, I knew that whatever storm awaited us, we'd face it together, resolute in our determination to reclaim not just survival but our lives. Face what's coming, I uttered, drawing strength from each of us, an unwavering brightness against the approaching twilight. As we readied ourselves to shatter the horizon, one truth emerged from the tumult. Amidst uncertainty, courage flourishes, and our journey was only just beginning.